should probably open Restream to double check that. We should be good.
All right. Well, good afternoon, Vikings fans. It is Thursday. We're getting ready for Thursday Night Football. The Washington football squad is coming to town.
Just avoiding that name altogether, huh?
Yeah, I've always felt uneasy about it, and my girlfriend is Native American, so I plan on not being single again. So I should probably learn how to compromise. But
Does
that's
she
not
also
the
go
hill
to
I would
another
die on
school?
either. What do you mean?
I've never met her, Joe. Did she go to another school?
She's from
Native
Canada.
American. She's from Canada.
Yeah. She's 95% hay. But yeah, it's I guess an more interesting matchup than it otherwise would have been, considering the return of Adrian. I can never retire financially. Peterson and Minnesota's ex-boyfriend that isn't as. It's not like the love of your life that got away in Teddy Bridgewater, but it's like the rebound guy you had that maybe could have worked out. I feel like the emotional attachment to Keenum has that people had last season, especially. I would hear that a lot. I don't know why they got rid of Keenum. I love Keenum. You don't hear that as much anymore. Perhaps considering how well or whatever the opposite of well is he's played during his time in Denver and now Washington.
A lot of mediocrity, and kind of indicative of what the team around him was in Minnesota that made that so successful.
Totally, and it doesn't help his cause in this context of Teddy playing so well down in Nolens, and now Cousins is showing facets of his game that I don't think Keenum just ever could have replicated, and that kind of makes, in retrospect, makes what the Vikings did make more sense. I think some people that were on the anti-Cousins bandwagon are at least seeing that in peak conditions, Cousins is the type of quarterback that Keenum never was. But you could say the same thing about both. I mean, Keenum did some spectacular things here. He was very, very Houdini-esque in his escapability, so on and so forth. But I think this will be a really good game, or it should be, knock on wood, to show people exactly that. Whoever's left beating we should have kept Keenum drum. Hopefully tonight we'll see exactly why that isn't the case. I'll get into that, but I saw some stats in an article written by Ben Gosling about the new air attack that the Vikings have. And then we'll just cover the game in general, a couple quick things, and then we'll be back for halftime and the post-game show. But I am Joe Johnson. I'm the owner of PurplePTSD.com, VikingsTerritory.com, PurpleTerritoryRadio.com, and the host/co-host of Morning Joes. I am here with, as always, Mr. Kirby O'Connor, who is the managing editor of PurplePTSD.com and the host of About the Labor and Vikings on the Clock for draft-specific podcast stuff. How you doing, man?
I am doing good. It's been a good few weeks. We've been really positive. There hasn't been much to worry about since about the third quarter of the Philadelphia game.
Yeah, it's been smooth sailing. I keep adding all this really cool stuff to my background, so I'm just going to be floating it by. This is the 87 Twins. With the cereal inside, I will eat it for clicks and then die of a fecal impaction.
I'm pretty sure my dad has the same box still, and it also has the cereal, so.
Yeah, I had the 91 one as well. I don't know where that one went. But I added some cool stuff this week. Yeah, I mean, how are you? I'm still trying to, since you and I haven't done a lot of shows together, get a sense on how similar or dissimilar you are to me about a game day and watching games. And I really have a hard time enjoying or watching the Vikings. Like I'm very nervous. My Taylor asked me earlier today about the game. She's a newly converted Vikings fan from a team that we won't mention, and I said, yeah, but the way I explained it was it would be a really big deal if the Vikings lost this game, and that terrifies me. I think I'm still a little bit waiting for the other shoe to drop or Cousins to fall back to earth or the offense to fall back to earth. Obviously, Thielen isn't playing. So I'm a little bit of a bundle of nerves coming into this game tonight. I mean, where are you at on it? I mean, they're coming off of what? They got shut
Um,
out last week, so it's
yeah,
not like they're a juggernaut.
Washington is a terrible. It is almost as bad as you can get in the NFL. That isn't the Miami Dolphins. Um, so like I'm not worried. Like I'm not nervous like I normally am nervous. Um, but that
It
being
would
said,
really
like
suck if they blew this game.
it would be just it would we would have a lot of like really negative things to deal with for the next. Here's the thing: like if we win convincingly, it's going to be awesome because we can coast for like the next week and a half
Yeah,
into the.
that is yes.
So like it'll
Um,
be a lot of like positive things, and Twitter will be great, and I'll be wanting to do it. But if we somehow inexplicably lose in any manner tonight, I think it'll be a rough like week and a half. That being said, I'm not super nervous about this one. I'm
yeah,
less nervous
it's at
about
home.
yeah, I'm less nervous about this one than I was about like even Buffalo last year, because I know Buffalo like has talent. Um,
Yeah,
Washington doesn't for the most part. Like they've
yeah,
got some like young like exciting players, but like we kind of alluded to, I'm not worried about Case Keenum destroying our defense, and I'm not too worried about Adrian Peterson coming out of like and rushing for like 200 yards or anything.
yeah.
Um,
A lot of things would have to go wrong for this at home for this Vikings team to lose, and you alluded to it. I love nothing more than just surrounding myself in Vikings articles and highlight videos on TV or YouTube when they win. So yeah, it would be really a rough set of circumstances for the next 10 days or so. I think I know what your answer would be, but considering the opponent, this is such a. I'm gonna take a different way to ask this. I think as people who do this for a living, like you and I do, we sometimes see things a little differently. I think we enjoy, for example, preseason games a lot more than like a regular fan would, because you get to see, like on the fourth game, especially guys that you watch at training camp, or especially with you being a draft guru, um, seeing stuff like that. So I think it'll be exciting in a way, if that's the most positive way to take it, to see like BC Johnson continue to get lots of looks. Irv Smith Jr., whether or not it pertains to your fantasy team this week, like it did last week. Maybe seeing a little bit more what we expected from Kubiak being here with the two tight end sets. I think that'll be an interesting wrinkle, and the most positive way to look at Thielen not playing tonight.
yeah, I think it's like as much as it sucks to not have Adam Thielen on the field because he's a monster, especially in the red zone. It is exciting to see, like especially against like I don't want to keep calling them that, but like a bad team. Um,
Yeah,
it's exciting to like see what they're gonna do and try to flex some of the like young guys. And I wrote an article about it yesterday on Purple PTSD. It'll be exciting to see because I think they're probably going to focus on Diggs and they're going to try to take away Diggs by even like double or even triple covering him as much as possible, which
yeah,
means what which is just going to turn around and that's going to give opportunities to, like you said, BC Johnson, um, Kyle Rudolph in the red zone. I think is going to be a big target tonight. Irv Smith, we could see Irv Smith go off and get his first 100-yard game and maybe his first score. Um,
for sure.
Perhaps we
Especially
even
lining up as
see
a receiver as he has been.
a Laquan Treadwell sighting for a few catches that actually matter. Um,
Non-garbage time.
Non-garbage time. Although that when he made that catch, the stadium erupted. The people who were left were very happy to see Laquan
You
Treadwell catch a
probably
pass.
aren't old enough to remember this, but I had season tickets for the Timberwolves for a long time, and I was at a game where the Timberwolves didn't have a first round draft pick for like 5 seasons because they got caught paying Joe Smith under the table. And when they finally got their first round pick, they took a guy named Nudie Eb. His last name was Ebi, and he was a high school guy. He was one of like the last guys that before they changed that rule where you have to play a year of college. and he was not good by any stretch of the imagination. But he finally got this dunk during garbage time in a game that I was at, and the crowd went nuts. KG like ran out on the court and tackled him, and like was just laughing. That reminds me of Treadwell's career a little bit. Things are either going really good or really bad if we get a Treadwell sighting at this point. Um, but yeah, I mean, what do you think the keys to this game are gonna be for the Vikings to um win? I would say what would have to go really wrong if they were to lose? I do think that San Francisco's defense is getting a lot of shine. They shut them out. I would love to see something similar, especially after how they performed in the Lions game. I would love to see the defense come out at home on fire and just giving them nothing. That would really help ease a little bit of any concern I have. I don't really have concern about the defense after that game. I think there's a myriad of things going on there. It's a division game. It was on the road. Stafford has really plays well against the Vikings for whatever reason, whether
Mm-hmm.
that's I know some games statistically weren't that great, but he like 16 to 14, 16 to 13, but he was really clutch in those games at the end of those to beat the Vikings. This is a whole different ball of wax. I would
Yeah.
just love to see them coming out and being really aggressive in regards to their play calling as well.
Yeah, I think that's like the word aggression is like a big is like is the thing that could go wrong, like the most wrong. Is like this is the kind of game that it feels like we should be super aggressive and try to get as many opportunities to score as possible and just like beat them in the opportunities. Like we should make it a track meet because the talent is like so much better.
Yeah,
Um, but this is also one that I could see Zimmer trying to like slow it down and like make it a war of attrition, which is not something you should do on a team that you can put up. If you try to get your opportunities, you can put up 50 points on essentially, um, which I think could happen if they go fully aggressive. Like I think we could see 50 points tonight, which would be amazing. Um,
I would love that. I mean, why not go the Belichick route and just
just bury
put
him.
the pedal to the metal and not, we have seen a couple times this season too. You mentioned the third quarter of the Eagles game, where the Vikings started strong and then gave the other team a little bit of hope, but then they like put their foot back on their neck and had those two touchdowns against the Eagles. I would love, yeah, just a consistent game of starting strong, continuing strong, finishing strong, against a bad opponent, because then at least, and this does not matter in the grand scheme of things. And Oberly I could hear him screaming from Fridley right now. But I look at some of the national media, some of the power rankings, or even some of the negative fans in the Vikings sphere that say, well, they're beating bad teams, they're beating bad defenses, and so yes, this is a bad team. You're going to continue to hear that. You're going to go, and then next week we'll hear, well, Mahomes didn't play. So them just thoroughly dominating a Redskins team, especially when you're looking at the 49ers performance and winning 9-0 in really bad weather. It would just be nice from that standpoint for the Vikings to do that. But it's not just about meaningless things like power rankings or anything. It shows the type of team the Vikings are if they were to come out and do something like that. I think it's more important than just how we talk about it.
Yeah, I think it's not
Um,
it's not so much about like public opinion, but it's like how the team feels about themselves, especially coming
yeah.
going into a week that's like huge. Like next week is like kind of like because obviously they've set themselves up where even if they lose next week, God forbid, like they still have a really good shot down the stretch because they've got a lot of home games and they've got a lot of games against opponents that I think they can beat. But like, um, I think winning this one convincingly changes a lot of things going into Kansas City, and especially if Mahomes is back, which like potentially, but I don't think so. I think Washington's just trying to make people like not try to game plan for one or the other because I saw something
Oh, you
that like
mean Kansas City?
yeah, because there's a good
Yeah,
somebody said something about there's a good chance that the Packers get Matt Moore this week as an opponent, and then the Vikings get
yeah.
Mahomes back, like which would suck. And of course, it would be the most Packers thing ever to get like the worst backup. Um, but yeah, I think for the team itself, it's like important to come out and it's important to like win, not only win this game but like kind of roll. Because if they eke out like a 21-17 victory or like win on a last second field goal or something, there's going to be like some sort of hangover rolling into next week at Kansas City. Um, it's just going to be I don't know. They need they not that they need a convincing win, but like a convincing win would do so much for I think the confidence of the team and the continued confidence of Kirk Cousins, especially because like it's very obvious that he's playing up to his ability right now, and I think it's because
Yeah.
he's confident and he's not pressuring himself right now. He's just letting the game come to him, and that's very obviously
He
like
seems to be having a lot of fun too. Um,
which is
he
not
seems to
something
be
we
having a good
saw,
time.
yeah, last year at all. We don't. I
No.
don't think we saw Kirk Cousins other than when he did that dance. Like I don't think we saw Kirk Cousins have fun, especially the second half of the year. Like we never saw any sort of smile out of him for the most part.
Yeah, and it's funny because Taylor i said maybe because she's a woman, she's been talking a lot about his body language this season and what she sees from there confidence wise, and she wants to write an article about that, but she's afraid like women might say it's sexist or whatever. But she literally said that she sees him being just looser. Earlier in the season, she was like, "Man, he just looks really nervous." You don't see that as much, which is a good thing. Um,
That
you wrote a
Chicago game,
really
he looked scared.
big time.
Yep.
And then I got scared. For a multitude of reasons. But you wrote a really good article this week that went up yesterday about the discussion of Cook as the best running back in the league, and I wanted you to kind of explain it a little bit and go into it. That's another thing that some people say at the end of the day it doesn't really matter who's the best. I mean, it does though. I mean, because it doesn't. It doesn't. I mean, and it depends on the system. But I'm a big I love articles like that, and I think yours is really well done and fair. It wasn't super biased towards Cook. Um, so yeah, man, if you want to explain it to people, and we'll put or they can look it up on as they're listening or after we're done.
Yeah, that one went up on Vikings territory. Yeah, I think the thought process that I had going in was there's a lot of people. Nick Olson, a few other guys like posting like analysis and like video highlights of Dalvin Cook and why he's the best running back in the NFL, and it kind of helps the fans get their jollies and everything. But like, I tried to look at it a little more objectively. I watched some highlights of not only like Cook but like comparatively. I shortlisted Ezekiel Elliott, Leonard Fournette, Alvin Kamara, Christian McCaffrey, and Cook. Oh, and Saquon
Saquon
Barkley
Barkley,
and
yeah,
Cook. So I shortlisted those six as like the ones that I saw the most conversation about. They're not necessarily like the best in like my opinion. Like I would drop Kamara and Fournette off that list entirely. But
yeah,
because they get so much talk, like that's why that was the choice. And I looked at them all individually and tried to decide like not only based off of this year but the last couple of years, um, who who is the best running back in the NFL right now. And like this year obviously has more weight than the last few years. But the thought process was to try to separate them. And what I came to the conclusion in the end is that it's really, really difficult to separate those top four guys who I had as McCaffrey, Elliott, Cook, and Barkley in that order. Currently, basically,
McCaffrey, Elliott, Cook, then Barkley.
yeah, that's 1 through
Okay,
4. Um,
yep. It's almost like a tiered system in fantasy where they'll say like, we'll just put these guys as the top, and then the top like the A plus, the
yep,
A, you know what I mean? Because it's you get down to splitting hairs when that happens.
yeah, and I think like the things that I that like I ended up deciding was like the reason that Fournette and Kamara are off of those lists is like Fournette's a runner who picks up a ton of yards but doesn't score, and then Kamara's a pass catching
Mm-hmm.
back. He's a great changeup, but I don't think he's a
Yep.
true number one. So like the four top ones are like the most complete running backs in the NFL right now. And like
Yeah.
I tried to look at them and I tried to figure out like what makes them better than like each other. And since I weighted this year so heavily, Saquon Barkley fell behind because of his injury.
Yeah.
Um, Ezekiel Elliott got a lot of. I gave him a lot of like positive because he's been doing it for this is his fourth year. Other than when he missed time for his suspension, like he's been very very consistent, and he's played on a good team and put up numbers. So like as much as I don't like to say he's good because I don't like the Cowboys and I don't like him specifically, you kind of have to give him his due. And what McCaffrey's doing is just kind of insane this year, and I thought it was like I thought it was kind of out of the blue because you didn't hear about him that much last year. But then I looked
Yeah,
at it and he had a crazy good year last year too. So I kind of continuation off of last year, and he also played all 16 games his rookie season, so he's never had injury concerns. Now I do think that there might be one if he continues to carry the load for Carolina because he's never gone over. I think
that's
it's
the
like
thing.
300 or 200
Yeah,
carries,
and I think your
207.
article kind of talked about that a little bit. You said he's already like this close to his total carries for last season. I forget exactly like what percentage or how close he was, but he's racking up a lot of touches. Um, that's one, I guess, positive of Cook being out. He hasn't put a lot of wear and tear on his body yet. But I think that what I took away from the article in general was, there was a time when a lot of teams would draft a running back with their number one pick, especially high end picks, like the top 10 picks, you get a lot of running backs. Then the NFL kind of moved away from that and said you can get the same output from a running back by committee. And I think we're kind of moving back towards the league again because it's a really the league is a very they a lot of followers. There's a lot of trends. The coaches will copy one another. I think a little bit. Well, not the NBA does that too. They're moving away from bigs and having a lot of 3-point shooting and now going back to bigs. I think we're seeing the renaissance of the running back right now, and I think that this is a really good example of that. It also raises the question to me, something that I would have never thought possible this preseason, which was who would I actually give Dalvin Cook? Who would I do money out the window if I could pick any of those running backs or make a trade? Would I give up Cook right now for Zeke or um, McCaffrey or Barkley? I think Barkley might be the best of the bunch when it all is said and done, just because he's such a next level freak athletically. Um, but I really did not see Cook coming out of the gate being this good this season, and it's really really awesome. I mean, I think that what he's doing can't be overstated. I have some stats about Cousins and his last week, for example, 3 of his 4 pass touchdowns were coming off of a play action play. Um, I saw in Gosling's article that stats say you don't need to run successfully to set up a successful play action, which I can't imagine that's true. I think you have
The
more success when you have like a quality runner because then the defense might jump a little bit more in anticipation of it. Maybe the stats don't bear that out, but that seems wrong to me.
they I think it was Charles Davis said something about it on the broadcast too. Was like, "Oh, I believe you can throw to open up your running game and open up your play action passing." And I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. Um,
Yeah,
and we saw it last year. That's what DiFilippo tried to do was like throw the ball to make the run successful. Um,
yeah.
I still think you have to run the ball well. You still have to have that threat because if you can rush 4 or 5 and still stop the run, then you can drop everybody else into coverage and not have to worry about it. But when you're having to stack the box with 6 to 8 players every single down because you have a threat for a guy to go for 5 yards every play, that changes everything drastically. Like it opens up the field so much. I don't know how it would be.
How the stats would imply otherwise. I have to look more into that because that just seems wrong. You would think that like vintage AP when they had 9 in the box, like you just said, that the play action would work wonders there. Not to mention the reaction from the players themselves who might overcommit to the run, and then be a step or two behind, because they're worried about getting burned on the ground. But this entire a lot of the success that the Vikings offense is having, I think, is because they have a legit run game. I mean, and that goes to the offensive line has been playing really, really well. The last two games they've had really great games after kind of being up and down. So what I'm really looking for in tonight's game is a team wide win, not one where we can say, well, it's good the offense showed up because the defense played bad, or vice versa. I would love to just see consistency across the board. Um, and I have a feeling that we might get there. And so score prediction, that's a hard one. I'm leaning on like my rational thought versus my emotional thought, and it's actually been serving me well, um, doing it that way in the contest that I do with Mr. Joe Oberly. But I went with a 34 to 12, I think was the score that I went with on Morning Joe. So I'm going to stick to that. Uh, there's no reason why they should lose this game at home, and I think the defense will give up 4 field goals, but no touchdowns, which means the Redskins will score a touchdown on their opening drive.
I'm gonna go. See, I'm also like on the fence of whether I want to go like aggressive and be like 50.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna say 35 to. I'm gonna say 35 to 6.
Ooh.
They give up 2 field goals. I think we play
Okay.
exceptionally well.
We're pretty close on that one, so we'll see what happens. We're doing the pregame show a little bit earlier because I have to run over to the liquor store, and I should be back to do the halftime show, and then after the game we will do a post game recap. And you guys can actually, it doesn't matter which platform you're on, whether it's YouTube, Twitter, Periscope, Facebook, LinkedIn. For some reason, you can actually send us any. We want to try to implement some like a call in, but you guys can just type your messages to us, and we'll answer any questions or comments that you guys have after the game, and we might have another guest joining us. Who knows? It could be crazy, but yeah, this has been the pregame show for the Vikings and Washington. We'll see you guys at halftime. Also, if you want to join our live chat during the game, that's always a ton of fun. That link will go up here in about 5 minutes, and you don't have to register if you don't want to, but it takes 2 seconds and it's free. So hope you guys join us again here in a couple hours, and Skol Vikes.
Skull.
Thanks.